some interesting weekends on the Cape and at the Beachcomber.
Yes, that is tends to be a hot spot for the younger crew. I was there with my kids a year or two ago, and I was like, wow, I'm old. Not quite the same vibe and intensity as I remember it when I was 23 and 24.
Well, speaking of, you use the term younger crew. Do you get when you hear Don Sweeney moments ago talk about the younger guys and the voice of the head coach, do you get the feeling that Bruce Cassidy, in their opinion, at some point lost that locker room when it comes to the younger guys?
Well, that's yes. And losing the locker room's one thing. I think getting a consistent message and having guys happy to play is another thing. I think listen, coaches get fired for two reasons in the NHL. It's one, they don't win enough, and two, the players have started to tune them out and started to get tired of going to the rink every day and listening to what the coaches got to say. And obviously in this case, with the results that Bruce Cassidy has had, you have to go to number B. And that seems to be the case. It sounds like Don saying those things. And you have these meetings at the end of the year, and if every player or a good majority, listen, every NHL team has 7 guys that hate the coach. WEEI, every pro football team has 10 guys that hate the coach. Like, that's pro sport. We all hate the coach. Guys are sitting in the room bitching about ice time. They're complaining about what this guy's doing. But at the end of the day, at the end of these interviews, if you have numerous guys coming in and say, well, I would like this to change, I would like to get a better message of what my role is, and if that continually happens, then it is on the GM to find a new voice for this group.
And it sounds like that there's still not an answer from your guy, from Patrice Bergeron. Would you guess that he also was a voice that recommended this change when it comes to Don Sweeney and Cam Neely?
Certainly not recommending. Patrice isn't a decision maker. He's the first guy to know. And all the star players that I've played with over the years recognize that they were just hockey players, and that yes, if they got asked what they think the team should do, they would answer it. But Patrice isn't storming into Don's office at the end of the year and telling him we need a new coach. That doesn't happen. And the only guys that I've seen that happen, they end up getting traded the next week, because that's not how an organization works. And the star player, the Hall of Fame players, don't conduct business that way. So I would assume there was some conversations, but there's nothing direct saying, should we keep Bruce Cassidy or not, in a phone call to Patrice Bergeron.
Razor, when you look at Patrice, when you look at Jake DeBrusk, when you look at David Krejci, in your mind with this coaching change, who comes back, who doesn't?
Well, Jake DeBrusk has got to be high on that list, because it's very obvious that he had a personal problem with Bruce Cassidy, and that was the reason for the trade request. That's pretty well known at this point. And again, I think that's pretty evident that there was issues with some of the players when it comes that public and that aware for everybody outside of the organization. And Jake DeBrusk, we saw how popular he was with his teammates. There was no issues in the room with what was going on. And I think that's also telling with how the guys felt about Bruce Cassidy at times, because no one went against Jake DeBrusk and having a problem with Bruce Cassidy, and no one felt like it was a real big issue to keep him around. So that's also telling, I think. I think Jake is the number one guy. David Krejci said some things about Cassidy during the season. He's too far away for me to really know whether that was the whole reason he left was because of Cassidy. I guess it would be more telling if he does come back. That'll be interesting.
But you say, I mean, telling about how the guys feel about Cassidy. Not a single one has tweeted, posted on Instagram, reshared anything. I'm looking at MySpace to try to find something.
TikTok.
And nobody is saying, like, thanks, an honor to play for you, nothing like that.
No, I wouldn't. So a couple things on that. I wouldn't read too much into it for two reasons. Number one, every single guy doesn't care right now. They're in Europe, they're in Canada, they're on the lake, they're gone. Guys if I'm a player right now, I could care less who my coach is. I am on vacation. I am relaxing with my family, and I might not even have found out until this afternoon, to be honest. The other thing is, guys that have that personal relationship with Bruce, I would imagine the hockey guys are just giving him a call, sending him a text. Probably not going to go to social media and do that. It's not really a thing. And again, it's a coach. So a coach-player relation, it's not like a former player or a former teammate. These coaches are still players' bosses. And like I said, a lot of times in pro sports, you expect the coach to be fired sooner than later, and you move on from it. Who's our next guy? Who's the guy I've got to impress in training camp?
Well, speaking of the next guy, if you're Don Sweeney and Cam Neely and I gather Charlie Jacobs, based on what Don Sweeney said, what are you looking for in the next coach when it comes to the Boston Bruins? Because you've had two really good coaches who have not got the result that you wanted. So are you looking for a younger guy?
Well, that's interesting. And I think Don Sweeney talked about directional shifts depending on where these players go, what's happening with Patrice, where these injuries are. So I think we'll get a pretty clear idea of which way they're going when they hire a coach. There's 7 or 8 job openings for coaches right now. There's probably 10, 12, 15 qualified NHL coaches out there. So it's really hard to pinpoint a guy coming in. I would expect there's somebody not like Bruce Cassidy, not like Barry Trotz, not like Claude Julien, that older, systems-oriented, disciplined, detailed kind of guy. I think the league's going to a younger, you see a guy like Jay Woodcroft in Edmonton, Jared Bednash, John Cooper, Gerald Gallant. These guys are all real player coaches, really allow young players to develop. So there's a lot of names out there. And I don't have one in particular, but I don't see it being a Barry Trotz-like guy coming back in.
Rays, I think the most important thing is, and Sweeney kind of mentioned it a little bit, is basically winning and getting back to winning. Is this roster, and I'm not talking about winning a round or two, is this roster a championship caliber roster, or do they need to make some massive moves on their roster to be able to get to that level?
Well, no, I mean, it's obvious they're not a championship roster. They'd still be playing right now. I think they were a couple plays away in Game 7 from still playing right now. You could make that argument. But at the end of the day, listen, the coaches, Bruce Cassidy's getting a lot of credit today. And he was great with the media. All the media guys liked him. So we're going to see a lot of positive. Bruce Cassidy, 245 wins, all the things he did. He also had a pretty good roster to win those 245 games. You look around, there's a lot of good coaches in the NHL that don't win games because they have bad rosters. So the idea that Don didn't give them players, I mean, he came into this team with 2 automatic Hall of Famers. You have Brad Marchand, David Pott. There's still good players in this lineup. So I'll go to now. There's a lot of teams in the NHL. There's a lot of organizations that would love to have David Pastrnak, Taylor Hall, Charlie Coyle, Brad Marchand, Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm at their disposal right now. So there needs to be some tweaks. They need to get better in certain areas. And yes, the young guys. But young guys they don't do a lot. You need the superstars. And the Bruins have some of those guys still. They have guys that can score 40 goals a year. So I don't think it's that far off. I just don't see how this whole thing's a rebuild, tear down that I'm hearing. It seems crazy to me.
All right, Razor, 2 things. One, I understand that everybody's in Europe right now, but they weren't in Europe the day the season ended when Neely basically publicly said it was all the coach's fault. So nobody said anything then to defend Cassidy in any way. And I think that the manner in which it's now, it's just accepted from these groups that there's no accountability from the people that ultimately sign the checks. The last time the Bruins fired a head coach was 2017. The owner of the Bruins was there. Jeremy Jacobs was talking about it. He said it was long overdue. Is the day of the Jacobs family answering any questions over?
Well, I think I don't know. as owners, I think they've done everything that the fans should want in the last 10 years. I mean, I understand the history. I was around in the late 2000s. Like, I get the history of the ownership here, but in the last
they went all in
years,
at all the deadlines, Razor? They didn't go all in with these rosters the last 10 years?
Well, they went out and got Hampus Lindholm
this year, yeah, definitely.
Deal just three months ago. They went out and got. They're getting criticized for the Rick Nash deal because the Rangers have Lindgren and Strome, and they got Keandre Miller in the first-round pick. So they went all in then too. They went all in on the deadline 2019. They got Charlie Coyle and Marcus Johansson. Like, they're going to the second round every year. There's 25 teams in the end. The Bruins are the only team to go 5 years to get to the last 5 years to get to the second round, and then entire National Hockey League. The only team.
Right, but did the last decade, did they maximize the window with the roster that they had? Did they maximize the last decade? Did they get every single ounce out of winning out of this roster over the last 10 years? So
if they win Game 7 at home and get that Stanley Cup, one game, one period, basically, one bad period, if that changes, is the narrative completely different?
Yes.
Because,
yes.
Again,
if David Tyree doesn't have the ball stick to his helmet one play in one game, the Patriots are perfect. They're not.
Well, I'm actually, as a guy, like the tuck rule, we never heard of Tom Brady ever again. It was
go back to there, or when his parents met.
It was a fumble. It was a fumble.
Hey, we're talking hockey here, Razor. Let's stick to the hockey talk, Razor.
I love it, Razor.
Listen, the thinnest of margins, guys. So it's like you got to take the whole body of it. And yes, this team would have loved to have won in 13. They would have loved to have won in 19. And the narrative is completely different. But I do think they've given them this ownership, this management has given fans an opportunity to cheer and get excited about this team. I've just been on bad teams in this league where they have absolutely no chance, and I still feel like having a chance means something in the NHL to me.
Well, the Bruce Cassidy era is over, and Razor, as always, thanks for taking the time to talk to us about it this morning. We really appreciate it.
You got it, guys. Enjoy the beat.
I've seen Razor coaching up his kids. I mean, maybe we put him in. A nice player coach.
I'll throw my hat in the ring. Yeah.
Okay.
A little Jaffe Razor.
Razor
Do you
love that
promise to
check,
come on
man.
with
He
us
love that
weekly?
check.
You'd have to continue to come on with us all the time, though.
I mean, any chance that the next head coach of the Boston Bruins is Dale Arnold?
Oh. Why do you have to go there every time?
Dale here.
Courtney, please.
I know.
Please.
It's just
These walls could
ridiculous.
talk.
All right, Razor, great to talk to you. We'll talk to you soon.